Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Torres, and accompanied by one of my dear co-hosts, Christina Nicolaou, all the way from Athens, Greece. How are you, Christina? How's summer been, or how is summer going?
I'm definitely more tanned than the last episode we recorded. So summer has been amazing, too short, but still, a little bit of the weekends here in Athens is not bad. And you yourself can't complain.
Not bad. I mean, it could be like 6 months longer. That would be nice. And I'm not saying it because of the holidays. Like, I've been working most of this summer because I took a holiday already in April. But just like, the weather, the long days.
Vibes.
You can't beat summer, can't you? Except for Instagram, where when you're working in the city, I've deleted it off my phone because I see everyone at the beach having amazing holidays. And as much as I like being in the city, it doesn't compare, right? So
No,
I love my job as well. I love doing this podcast, but it doesn't compare.
Yes, of course. And Athens doesn't compare to the islands too.
Yeah. Do you have a policy around Instagram, or do you keep it open?
I keep it open, but I'm not very much hooked on it. So very rarely I just peek, and perhaps I post like twice per year or something.
Speaking about Instagram, by the way, we've recently revamped our FMCG Guys Instagram. So if you're listening to this, please open your Instagram app, follow valuable content instead of like all the bad content there is out there. At FMCG Guys on Instagram. Speaking of social networks, we've just reached 25,000 followers on LinkedIn, which I think, we're not going to lie, it was a milestone that was a big target for us.
It's a huge milestone, Daniel. I will always go back to the day that Efren asked me to join you guys. And I really never thought that we would reach a point where there's 25,000 people. And, I don't know how much people know it, but we don't really do any kind of acquisition stuff. It's really people who care about the content that we're producing, and they are following us. So I'm very grateful, and I feel a little bit emotional, I have to say, reaching this milestone.
It is a great moment. I have to say that even if we don't pay directly, we do a lot of content and we put a lot of stuff out there.
Yes.
So I would expect to have that following. And here's to many more. No, our friends, the CPG guys over in the US are at 38,000, and we have a friendly competition with them. So hopefully we can try to catch up with them within the next couple of years.
Sky is the limit.
Exactly. They're also at episode over 500, and we're at 260, I think, as we speak. So little by little. But let's have fun while we do it. So, Christina, a topic that we've talked a lot around at the podcast, I think traditionally, but also this year, has been FMCG growth. I think that in a time where it's not for granted, especially, it's probably becomes more of a question.
And with every quarter earnings release, I think that more and more people are brought into the conversation, and more questions are being raised about how the latest trends, the trends since COVID, I would say, are here to last, or is this kind of like a reset period that we're going through? So I believe that we've had a lot of conversations with our followers, also on LinkedIn, as well as with our guests here on the podcast. And a lot of people are interested on listening to more points of view.
Yeah, totally. And I think that there's different ways to grow. And we talked recently about revenue management. We've talked about relationships with modern trade, and we've talked also about going into new markets, distributor management, etc. And I think that we have the right person to talk about these topics today. And I'm very happy because it's somebody that I've known in the industry for a long, long time. Maybe he can tell me how long, because I'm not sure. Maybe a decade already. But it's no other than Constantin Fink, who's now the Chief Commercial Officer for Tchibo's international business. Hey, Constantin, how are you?
Hi, very good. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me, and congrats for your 25K. So let's make Europe great again, huh?
Exactly. We're competing against the CPG guys every day, trying to prove our European pride in FMCG little by little.
Europe and beyond.
Yeah, it's part of our DNA, right? And I'm very excited to be with you and being part of this quite selected circle of FMCG experts. So I hope I will not deceive you.
Well, we've been in touch for 10 years, so you've put yourself through time, right? And you've put up with me enough that the least I can do is invite you to the podcast, right?
Thank you.
So Constantin, because I mean, you have a very interesting background in FMCG. People can see it on your LinkedIn. But how did you first get into FMCG, like back in the day?
Yeah. Basically, I started my career end of the 90s in Germany after having earned 2 masters in consumer marketing from business schools in France and in Germany. And I've done internships with Mars, Kraft, and L'Oreal. And I always wanted to work on, let's say, tangible, relevant products, day-to-day products. So this is what brought me to FMCG.
And you've had quite a long career at the beginning at L'Oreal, right? And you went through a lot of roles. I was going through your LinkedIn, quite impressive, like product and sales. Tell us a little bit about your career path there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, L'Oreal is really a fantastic company and offers you a lot of different possibilities. I had the chance to begin as product manager of one of L'Oreal's iconic hair care brands for consumer market, so mass market. And I was privileged because after 3 years, we regained market leadership in Germany. And literally, I've done everything you can do at that time, or you could do at that time in marketing. So TV advertising, print advertising, radio campaigns, sampling, NPD, you name it. The only thing that didn't exist at that time really was internet. But this was really a great start and also kind of proof that what you learn in terms of concepts or what you can do in marketing actually is not just marketing buzz, but really works if you do it in the right way.
Yeah. So basically, you think that the fundamentals that you learned back in the 90s are still very applicable today, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be. I mean, sometimes people think in cosmetics, etc. It's a lot of shine and buzz, but literally, it's like everything in FMCG is hard work. You have to really have the skills, and you have to understand the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are still true today. Today, it's quicker, it's faster, it's more agile, but you still have to calculate in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we had a conversation very recently, actually, on the podcast, and we were saying that ultimately marketing is consumer and consumer is just people. And this is the one constant thing that will not change, right? And it's just different approaches on how you build the relationship, but ultimately.
Yeah. Well, the people do change a little bit also, though.
Yeah.
Generation-wise. And one thing, Constantin, one of the basics when people build their career in FMCG, and now we know that, I don't know if you knew that at the time, is doing cross-functional moves. And then I look at your first roles at L'Oreal, you started in marketing, but then you went to national key accounts, training and development, category management. So every role was a different department. What was the thinking, or how did that happen even?
But literally, I'm used to say it bit by chance. I went into sales. I mean, when we did all the marketing work, I was pretty much involved in working with the different key account managers and understanding how that works and the retail chains. And each time they told me, you don't know, and negotiation and trade terms, etc. And that's for sure the best hook you can have with me is to tell me I don't know. So I will know, I will understand. So I learned, and I think that's really something very complementary. And I tried to build around different skills. And sales was also something where you have a lot of interaction, direct interaction, and also something where it's not from a distance, but you have the direct result with the retailer, the buyer. And that is not so easy, but it's also quite exciting, right? Because you see immediately if it works or not.
Yeah. How was it actually to go into a national key account role in Germany, which is famously very tough retail?
Yeah. I mean, I had the chance. I started with one of the major drug chains who were looking for a key account manager who could also analyze, build up promotions, etc. I did, to name them, DM Werner, Müller, Rossmann at the same time. It was interesting because it was for sure hard work. And the very first meeting, I still remember the guy took my business card and said, "Yeah, should I keep it, or are you still with us in 2 or 3 months?" And for sure, you learn to get a lot of no's in your face, and you have to work harder and to be relevant, right? You have to find the right means, a lot of insight on the categories, and that makes a difference at the very end.
Yeah.
And it also makes you a little bit more mature, right? So you're losing your marketing naivety maybe from business school, and then you're in the real world.
No, totally. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I think that developing that agility early on is an important one. And then one other thing that I recommend people to do early on in their career that you also did was going international. So you went to France relatively early on in your career as well, which you were in Germany, and then you went to France, the headquarters. How did that work?
Rather quite naturally. I mean, as I said, I did business school also in France. My wife is French. I'm still married and in love for sure. And
what came first, the international move, or did you meet your wife first?
First, my wife. And she was for sure interested also to go to France, because at that time in Germany, if you have children, it was not that easy, still not that easy for people to combine, for women especially, to combine their careers as well. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a fantastic move because I was in the headquarters and I was in a role in training development. So we built, organized and set up from scratch a training track for all the key account managers in Europe and abroad. And that was for me also exposure to different countries, different retailers, distribution channels, formats. And that was, again, something I still recommend. You have to be eager to learn. And I learned quite a lot at that time, for sure.
And then when did you take on like your first management experience? Because I think that's like another of the big steps when you develop your career.
Yeah, actually, not immediately big roles, so not big teams, but always 2, 3, 4 people. That was when then I moved into a kind of sales director role for actually a startup business for Afro-Caribbean hair care, where there you have to lead and recruit a team and find in Europe the right distribution channels for Afro-Caribbean, for Black people. Very interesting. So micro marketing, micro management, and you have to knock on the door at the retailers and say, okay, hey, I'm from L'Oréal, but I have something completely new. But there are some relevant consumers in your stores. We should take care of them.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and doing it then must have been different to doing it now, in the way like that. The movements of population have even accelerated since then.
Yeah.
So, and then you go to Middle East and Africa and Pacific. Was that like a geographical move as well, or?
No, actually, I was still based. I used to say based in Paris, but literally I was 3 weeks out of 4 in a plane, a different plane, different country. Was Middle East, Africa actually, and Pacific was basically Middle East, Africa, but went into India and then even until Australia and New Zealand. So huge area.
Totally. And is that something that you think that formed your thinking and career and taste, if you like, as well in the future, in terms of like looking for those more like growth markets? Is that something that you did after in L'Oréal?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, these were and are still to some extent emerging markets, so super relevant. Also, what is relevant in this vast area is for sure that you have completely different distribution patterns from very organized, modern retail in, let's say, in Australia, all almost, there are only two big retailers, basically, two mom and pop stores or two kiranas in India. So you have to work differently in different countries. For sure, you need to have a kind of mindset to switch between these different challenges. But this is also what is extremely rich, because there's always something you can transfer from one context to the other, and it just opens possibilities, right? So you're not narrowed down to, I always do what I always did, but you say, maybe that can be different. Or you have some obstacles where you say, but yeah, in India, I need samples, I need sachets. How can I manage this? Can I produce it in our own factories, etc.? So you start getting quite inventive.
Well, the thing is, it's kind of, it's hard to see like how you can manage within the same role a market like India versus Australia, New Zealand, right? Which, for us that have been there, and even if you haven't, you can imagine it's two completely different realities.
It's different realities. I mean, for sure, you the business you still do on the ground, right? You don't do it behind the desk in Paris or in Hamburg or somewhere else. What is important for sure is that you try to focus on the relevant things, on the relevant KPIs, and in this role, which is kind of metrics role, you're then also a ping pong partner, I used to call it. I mean, you have to be relevant, but people will only listen to you if you have some solutions, but also if they can share with you some things. Yeah, how have you done this in different countries, or what should I do? And then the interesting part starts to happen now.
And then in L'Oreal, you did another three other roles actually, which we won't go into right now, but it's around, you did S&OP as well, which is very interesting, but you did around, revenue management, business development, and so on. Obviously a great career, great stint. What do you think made you successful in the L'Oreal culture? Or what did the L'Oreal culture have that made you successful?
But I would say the interesting thing with L'Oreal is it's a fantastic school for marketing and sales, but you have to be good. I mean, you have to have ambition, you have to work hard, you have to be eager to go the extra mile. There are a couple of things that we used to say in L'Oreal, and which is still relevant today. It means one is you have to be poet and paysan. That means a poet is somebody who can imagine a fantastic new product, but the paysan is really the one who's actually working. You know, you're not shy, you're not delegating, you go for it. You get a lot of responsibilities immediately, and you can make it. Then for sure, one of the other things is do things, redo it to improve it. So this idea of constant improvement, which is sometimes exhausting for people, even for retailers. But when you launch a product, you always already have the relaunch in your back, right? So it's this constant idea of how can I improve, how can I be more relevant. You never turn off, so you can also hate it, but I loved it because there's always something happening. And then you have for sure the one of the powers and strengths of L'Oreal, besides being in each and every distribution channel with relevant products for different beauty models, is also the power of execution implementation. So sometimes you don't do a long 18 months research to launch a product. You launch in a couple of months, but you launch immediately and you roll it out. And this is really something which is clearly a strength for L'Oreal. Besides having really relevant products, and even in a shampoo, there's a lot of technology behind it. And you constantly test to be better than the best performing product. And that makes you successful. And also the let's say the strict adherence to this idea of I'm solely focused on beauty, and I go for it. And if there are new trends, I try to grab the new trend and to transform it in an even better product.
Yeah, it does have, I think, L'Oreal, that combination of, how to say it, like strong entrepreneurship, but also like a very, very, very high standard, but also like a very strong political component and relationship component. So it is one of the strong cultures in FMCG for sure. One that's not for everybody, but I always say like functional cultures are normally not for everybody. Or in other words, it's kind of difficult that a culture is for everybody.
Yeah.
So when you left L'Oreal, you did two very interesting moves. First, you went into consulting at the Monitor Deloitte, and then you went into food service with Sodexo, the big food service operator that everyone should have seen somewhere if you have your eyes open. So, tell me about these two moves. What did you learn? What was the thinking about it?
Yeah, it might surprise the audience, but at the end, there is a kind of golden thread inside, which was always business development. So I'm obsessed with top line growth. So I'm not really interested, I have to say, in finding the nitty gritties at the lower end of the P&L to make a bit more of adjustment. Top line growth, so business development. And in consultancy, there were two components. So we started with not many people in Paris and France. Was the idea to let's say compete with the McKinseys and the BCGs of this world. That was really exciting, and for me personally, it was exciting to do completely different things, to work with, to name a few, for Nestle, Danone, different industries, different contexts, always within a scope of marketing and sales excellence. But that was really something where basically I did each 3 months a new MBA, right? So what I took over from consultancy was really how to use and apply strategic frameworks, being able to take an helicopter view, but at the same time being able also to deep dive, building and testing hypotheses quickly, working under real time pressure, and also at the very end, how to fill in a blank sheet with some meaningful, relevant, and actionable insight. So that's really something maybe I should have done at the very beginning of my career. So I did the opposite move, but definitely I don't regret, because really I learned a lot.
Well, and the fact is that you stayed at Deloitte for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of comes to prove that you were able to change your chip and really operate in that environment.
Yeah.
What about Sodexo? How was that?
That I mean, what I learned from Sodexo, which is basically food service, but also facilities management. Here you had to shift your mind from, let's say, before B2B to C, now really to B2B. So I learned how to work on a sales funnel. I experienced the real power of CRM. So we introduced quite successfully in record times Salesforce. And then you work with different KPIs. You don't work with kind of market share or average pricing, etc. You work more on KPIs like conversion rate, like deal size, sales effectiveness, and that was also very interesting, because at the end it was facts and figures driven. So I was again at home, because my job was really to professionalize and to modernize the sales function within Sodexo, and I did this within the business unit of private companies, so also big contracts, including for sure FMCG companies, but also healthcare, etc. So again, learning curve quite a lot. And also, I mean, it was completing the picture of what actually is important in sales. And, people are still thinking in terms of, is sales art or science? For me, the answer is super easy, right? Sales is art and science and process. And these three together really grounded and in great and talented people, then it works. If not, if you can be talented, you can have great facts and figures, but you also need a process and you need the people to basically implement and be successful.
It feels like with the career you've had, Constantin, you really kind of like, as you said, you completed the picture of this top line growth algorithm. If you want, as you said, it's your obsession. How do you actually see the status of the FMCG right now, and how growth is, let's say, coming up in the past quarters or not coming up?
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah, or not. Okay, maybe let me first start by saying, for me, two very important things. I truly believe that growth is good for everybody. What I mean by everybody, it's good for consumers, for clients, for employees, for stakeholders, and also for communities. So don't be shy to go for growth, right? And the second thing I wanted to say before I'm answering actually your question, I will use in my words something that a former CEO of Mars said. He said, profit without purpose isn't meaningful, but purpose without profit is just not possible, right? So I think profit is good also for the progress of humanity, and I'm not shy to say it. But clearly in FMCG, yes, the most of the FMCG companies are struggling for growth, indeed, especially after COVID. But there are also some exceptions, L'Oreal for sure, but as well, quite recently Danone. So after they really did a great turnaround. So Danone is actually growing faster in volume than in sales. And maybe let me also tell you about something completely different. But I'm here in Germany, so we're drinking a lot of beer. The beer market in Germany is down since ages, probably since 10, 15 years in terms of volume. But still, there are also beer manufacturers, beer suppliers who are still growing. So it is possible. But for sure, volume is in decline. That makes everybody nervous, investors getting concerned. A lot of CEOs are changing, and you have to reinvent yourself because you cannot do the same thing like before and expecting to have different results. So there are some new recipes probably to do, and maybe some of the big FMCG companies have become too big or too diversified, and maybe you lose a little bit the focus. Yeah.
Do you see this as kind of like an inherent kind of state of the FMCG right now, or more of a retail landscape evolution that we're seeing? We do see also like more consolidation, more modern trade versus traditional trade, out of home consumption also kind of, let's say, not thriving. So what do you think? Is it like more of the consumer changing their shopper habits, or is it more of how the FMCG companies chose to grow in the past years?
Yeah, I mean, most of the FMCG companies have grown the last years with price adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say price increase. I prefer the term price adjustment. Maybe come to this later. Why I call it price adjustments, which is for sure something nobody likes, right? And
Yeah.
at the same time, also the consumers, for sure, they're savvy and they're doing trade-offs. What means trade-offs? They're looking for, let's say, cheaper brands. They're looking for private label. They're looking for other alternatives. They go maybe more for promos, so they stock on promo deals, etc., etc. So the available income is not growing as much as inflation did in the last couple of years, and then for sure people start to diversify, right?
And you said you wouldn't go for the term price increases, but rather price adjustments. So what has your experience been in that space?
Yeah, I mean, price adjustments are really necessary, right? So again, let's be clear. Nobody likes price hikes,
Mm-hmm.
but especially after COVID and with let's say or the scarcity of raw materials, inflation was skyrocketing, and I can name a lot of examples: wheat, sugar, recently olive oil, cocoa, and right now green coffee, and hazelnuts. Also, really, that's the latest one. So, people have to understand at the very end is if you're manufacturing, you have to buy upfront all these raw ingredients. And you have contracts you have to deliver. So you go upfront, you spend more money, and you need to get your money back, because if not, you cannot produce. I mean, you can still, and you have to do your homework. You have to optimize your cost of materials, your COGS, etc. But at a given moment, if everything is skyrocketing, you're obliged to pass on the increases, right?
And you don't think there's been like a bit of a point of like that FMCGs? Well, we had a recent guest that kind of was what he was saying, Mark Jagger, that it had been kind of a lazy growth for FMCGs, that instead of like really like finding new ways to connect with the consumer, new innovations, etc., they just kind of relied on these like price increases after price increases, as the economy was also going well in the last.
Yeah.
In this COVID period, right?
Yeah. That's certainly true, and that was a trap. and can still be a trap because after all, I mean, you also have to, let's say, to justify your price adjustments. If you cannot justify them, if you just mechanically pass on, then at a given moment, for sure, you're not relevant. And also retailers, they will just tell you, guys, we have our own label productions. We know exactly about the inflation, about the input costs. Don't tell me any crazy things, right?
Yeah. And I guess like when we're talking about growth and even like calling price lazy growth, it's mainly when we're discussing about organic, right? Or like for like comparisons. But that's not the only way that companies grow. And you've had quite a bit of experience on expanding and entering in new markets and overall business development. What has your experience been on that side of things?
Well, I mean, these days you really need to be extremely good in execution, in operational excellence, for sure. You have to do your homeworks. You have to know exactly what is your product worth in terms of production. Then for sure you have to focus on what's working, what's not working. So then we go back to some people call it shrinking to growth. I don't like so much the word shrinking, but you have to, for sure, you have to do a kind of ZBB or zero-based approach to growth. And you have to say, okay, how much money do I invest? Which are the categories that are relevant? And where should I operate? And maybe where should not operate? And then for sure, at a given moment, emerging markets or new markets are interesting and they carry future weight, but only if you are relevant, if you have a cultural relevance, a strong local capability, deep distribution, the right distribution partner, and you really have to be obsessed with where do I put my money and basically what is my return on investment. And if it's not proven return on investment, or if you're not sure, you cut it and you put it somewhere else where you are, let's say, more certain to get your money back.
You also mentioned brand and retailer relations. So to be more specific, I'm curious to know your take. Now that you're a bit in a different business as well, but having been in the top-to-top negotiations with European retailers, how do you see like the FMCG and European retailer buying groups dynamic? Because I know that that's been like a huge source of tension. Sometimes it seems like a battle to zero more than like a joint value creation agenda.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that the retailers always have that thread of like being able to deploy more private label solutions versus brands, right? As well.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, your brand must have something special compared to a private label, right? So I worked also on private label. It's a very interesting industry, and believe it or not, most of the people will not like it, but very often the let's say private labels are actually at least as good as brands. And in terms of ingredients, in terms of different, let's say, sugar content or, let's say, environmental friendly things, because retailers are really pushing for it. So if you want to stay relevant, you have to be as good as they at least. Now, you mentioned one thing for sure, which is a clear threat, is all these buying alliances, purchasing organizations. And let's be clear, there's a lot of consolidation. Everybody is switching between. So basically your trade terms, your prices are known everywhere over the place, even if it should not be, and unofficially or officially, but they are known more or less. And for sure, retailers today, they can push on a button and they know exactly, if you have a comparable product, what do I pay in Hungary, what do I pay in France, and what do I pay in Norway? And if there are huge differences, which you as a manufacturer cannot explain, then you are in trouble.
So what can brands do around that? Like, what would your advice be to people that are listening that are managing FMCG brands?
But first thing, if you have really huge price differences for comparable products, you have to tackle this. one way or the other, because it will fall back and will haunt you. So you have, at a given moment, you cannot immediately tackle this, but you have to tackle this. It's also a question of let's say, sincerity, and also of reliability for a retailer, because if not, it will really haunt you. The other thing is also that you try to be, let's say, not easy to replace. That means either you have strong products or you also have big market shares, which for sure is helping you. And you have consolidation. Even this morning, which is directly impacting also the coffee industry, you have Coring Dr. Pepper and GDE merging. I mean, it's Bankies going to Bankies at the very end, but this is a coffee powerhouse. They will become the new L'Oreal of cosmetics and coffee. And this for sure gives you a certain, let's say, impact and also leverage effect when you talk with retailers. They don't like you when you are too big, but when you're too big, you also cannot get rid of you.
Yes, and ultimately they also are fighting for their own market share within this market. So if you are part of what brings the footfall and the traffic, then they will need you in their baskets, I guess. But it's with a direct relationship, when you are present with your brand in the market and perhaps you speak directly with the retailers, it might be a bit easier. But what about all the cases where you are expanding and you might be on a distributor model and you have to influence? Like how have you managed in the past, this kind of work through distributors?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Almost a bit of a different topic. I think what is important to understand is if you go into a new market, for sure, you can go direct, but you can also reduce your risk, reduce your investment, and you find the right distribution partner. I think the important word here is really partner, because the distributor is just not a mean to supply and to deliver, but it has to be a distribution partner. You have to choose this distribution partner wisely. So you have to do a lot of due diligence commercially and also from an admin standpoint and from ethical standpoints. But once you have find the right distributor, it's your partner, right? He needs to earn money. So, and you have different gatekeepers. And that is really super important. So for sure you can manage a distributor, but if this guy is not earning money, at the very end, the products will not be present in your store. And I think what is really interesting but also important for distributor business, and this is again complementary, it really forces you to think the whole value chain, also about the profit pool sharing. So at the very end, out of the retail selling price that the consumer is paying minus value-added tax, how much stays in the different pockets of a retailer, a wholesaler, a distributor, yourself, the state. And this really forces you to be extremely, let's say, to scrutinize really each and every step and be sure that you are relevant in terms of pricing, relevant in terms of product, and relevant in terms of go-to-market strategy.
Yeah. Totally. I think that one thing that's interesting about distributor management and why people should remember of the importance and the strategic importance of it is that that's the way to go to market in a lot of growth markets globally. India, Indonesia, Africa. But I think that India and Indonesia have two very specific opportunities that are right there right now.
Yeah, and you have maybe even, I mean, India, I will do two comparisons. India for sure is a very complex market, huge market, but even if you will not have one distributor, you will probably have a sole importer, and then this distributor has sub-distributors, regional distributor. It's a whole network. The same, by the way, for the US, which has nothing to do with India, but in the US, from east to west coast, you cannot afford to have just one distributor. You have to have networks, and you have so many retail chains and retail buyers that you have even brokers who put you in relation to this. The only difference between the US and India is that in the US, each step of the chain wants to earn 30 or 40% margin. I'm exaggerating, but you can imagine that is extremely costly. India is still more affordable.
sometimes people forget how important the figure of the broker is in the US. And actually, that's specifically for alcohol, it becomes even more complicated
With
because
the
you have
3-tier system.
the 2-tier system, which they invented after Prohibition, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I want to go back to the beginning of our conversation here, Constantin, when you were talking about, art, science, process, and talented people. So when it comes to developing talent now, we have talked a bit about modern trade and distributor management. What do you think in terms of how viable it's part of the experience is? Do you think that someone needs to have an experience of both sides in order to understand this? How did you call it? To be obsessed with top line growth?
Yeah. I mean, in a role like mine, definitively. It helps, and it is mandatory, because if not, you're not relevant, and you probably do the wrong decisions. But because you only have the modern distribution mindset, or you only have the distribution mindset, it's really, I'm a strong believer of complementary experience and expertise, and having experience, lived and work in both worlds, it really allows you to see more possibilities and to better know the ropes, right? So it is it needs a bit of mental flexibility from time to time, but it really forces you to focus on what you think from a kind of funnel approach is the right way to do.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that, and we were reflecting before, like the more cross-functional, as long as it's in a more or less coherent way, but the more cross-functional.
Exactly, that is important. Mm-hmm. There needs to be coherence for sure, because if you bluntly look at my CV, you say, different. But if I explain a little bit the golden thread through it, which is business development, top-line growth, and basically working with people and distributors, retailers, and it hopefully makes sense. Yeah.
It does. And by the way, I think we need to talk about like what you're currently doing for the last few months. You joined Tchibo.
Yeah.
For us familiar with the Germanic market, is a very well-known company. But can you tell us a bit about the company and actually what your role is? Because you're doing international, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Tchibo, nobody knows it except in Austria, probably Germany and Switzerland, but it's a household name. Founded in 1949 in Hamburg. And we're basically selling coffee and non-food items. And what is interesting, really, Tchibo stands for kind of an unique omni-channel business model. So we operate and are present in our own shops, in all major retail outlets, and we have our own online shops. And with us or with Tchibo, you can really discover good things every day. So all sorts of copy from bean to cup, including, I have to do a bit of advertising, the world's smallest fully automatic coffee machine, a great gift. Plus we have weekly changing non-food ranges, like you also could find it maybe in Lidl and an Aldi. And that is really interesting. And we have round about, I think, 11,000 employees worldwide. We generate roughly three and a bit more billion euros net sales in 2024. And my role is basically taking care of business sales outside the DACH region, so outside Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. That encompasses for sure a lot of countries in Eastern Europe. So we're not in all in Germany, we're really a market leader in coffee. In the Eastern European countries, we are either number 1, 2, 3, or 4. So still some room to grow. We also do business Middle East. We do business in the US and in Asia.
It wouldn't be, I guess, the FMCG guys podcast if we were not asking you the final question that we ask all our guests. So now, Constantin, with everything that you know and you've learned throughout your career, if you were to go back, like at the beginning, when you were starting working in FMCG, what is the one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Oh, my goodness. How much time do we have?
Well, you can only choose one, so...
I'll only choose one. I had maybe two. I had maybe one, which is Constantin, work harder on your PIN code. So what is a PIN code? Actually, it's not a term that has been coined by me. I first heard it from Cécile Belliot, who is the CEO of Bell Group. Bell is Baby Bell and the Laughing Cow. And PIN code is basically stands for P like performance, for sure. Starting point, you have to perform. A is image and N is network. So if you want to be successful, work hard on your PIN, perform well, but also make sure you have the right network and you convey the right image, for sure.
This was Constantin Fink, Chief Commercial Officer International at Tchibo. Christina, what are your takeaways?
First of all, that we didn't have enough time. I wanted to keep on talking with Constantin because it was a very engaging discussion. We went across
part two.
Yeah, we need to. I mean, like, we're talking about so many things, and Constantin has such a great experience. But starting with the whole art and science question of sales and adding to that process and talented people, it felt very much spot on, very much in line both with my experience as well as with all the conversations we've been having.
I also like the fact that he very early on took cross-functional experience, international experience, people management. I mean, what a great way to start your career. No, it's like great building blocks at the beginning.
Yes, and as we kind of like conclude in the podcast, but we also start, it was like a very coherent experience, while at the same time being diversified and cross-functional.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, I think that if you look for the learning versus just like the promotion or the title or whatever your family tells you to do, it's the best thing you can do.
Absolutely. And you create a kind of like, you build character if you want, in a way you have the right values. And you could clearly see that also throughout the discussion, I felt that Constantin wouldn't shy away from the difficult questions as well. I think that we had a really good conversation also around the tough questions about price adjustments and the growth in the FMCG lately. I loved how he quoted the profit without purpose is not meaningful, but also like, let's be realistic, purpose without profit is also not possible. And understanding how a manufacturer operates within the overall environment of the industry, and that you have to make some decisions about costs which come up front. Of course, you need to optimize as much as you can, and you also need to be able to justify whatever price that you have in the market. But it's kind of a different conversation versus just the part which we touched upon a bit, which is, do I drive just lazy growth by taking pricing?
Yeah. Well, I think it was a reality check, no? Because he said, look, the price increase had to be done in a lot of ways. But at the same time, what is your, what's so special about your brand that people should be paying a premium for it? And we didn't cover that in the interview, but he's worked in private label. So he knows well the quality, he knows firsthand the quality of it. So what differentiates your brand? And he also put it in like, how can you make your brand irreplaceable, or at least not easy to replace? I thought that was a very interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back on the points also with regards to the relationships with retailers and the buying groups, right? When we talked about specifically, okay, of course, if you have huge price differences from one place to another for the same brand, you need to understand like what's not working with your value chains and tackle it. But then going in how irreplaceable a brand can be. One part is market share, of course, but the other part is how can you consolidate and gain a little bit more leverage within those conversations, but also the element of how unique your brand is. So ultimately, how is your brand bringing consumers in the retailers themselves, and how is your brand driving the growth for the retailer?
Totally. I mean, I think that's, I don't know, I in the last few months, I haven't heard that much about the tension between brands and retailers, but maybe we'll come with this annual negotiations and so on, no?
Or just wait for the next retail media episode.
That's true. And of course, I think that worth underlining what he mentioned about the PIN code, about performance, image, network. No, so a shout out as well to the executives that listen to us. If they want to come and speak with us and build their image on the FMCG Guys podcast, they should get in touch with us. No,
get it on your development plan, guys.
Exactly. Or your CEO get your team to come to the podcast as part of the development plan.
Yep.
Fantastic, Christina. Happy run, Trey. We're back in the office. I'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG, guys. Have a great one.